Tonight, we're following one of history's longest and quietest roads. But instead of traveling beside emperors, famous generals, or wealthy rulers, you will experience the Silk Road as an ordinary traveler, walking one patient step at a time across mountains, deserts, fertile valleys, and distant cities connected by one remarkable network of ancient routes. Before we begin, take a quiet moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if these long, slow journeys through history are genuinely something you enjoy. And let us know in the comments where you're listening from tonight, and what time is where you are. It's always comforting to imagine people from so many different places slowly drifting off together beneath the same night sky. Now dim the lights, settle into a comfortable position, and allow the noise of the modern world to fade gently into the distance. Take one slow breath, then another. There's nowhere else you need to be. The road is already waiting. As your breathing settles into an easy rhythm, you find yourself standing just beyond the walls of ancient Xi'an. The morning air still carries the coolness of the night, and the first pale light is only beginning to touch the tiled rooftops beyond the city gates. Somewhere nearby, you hear the quiet pull of rope being tightened around a carefully wrapped bundle of silk. A camel shifts its weight with a soft, familiar grunt. Wooden cartwheels creak gently as merchants make their final preparations without hurry or unnecessary conversation. Nothing here feels rushed. Although the Silk Road is often remembered as one of history's greatest trade routes, it was never simply a road for merchants or precious goods. It was a living network of paths that quietly connected people who would never otherwise have met. Along these roads travelled silk, tea, paper, spices, stories, religions, music, languages, scientific ideas, and countless ordinary people whose footsteps slowly shaped the history of continents without ever realizing it. More, over the next few hours, you will travel those same ancient roads. You will leave the great cities of imperial China behind, cross broad grasslands and patient deserts, climb through mountain passes, rest beneath the stars beside peaceful caravan camps, meet travelers from distant cultures, and eventually arrive in markets thousands of miles from where your journey began. Not quickly, one quiet mile at a time. Let's begin. Now the first rays of sunlight spread gently across the rooftops around you. Workshop doors open one after another. Ledgers are carefully rolled and tied with cord. Pack animals stand patiently while their saddles are adjusted and checked one final time. Bales of silk wait beside baskets of tea, fragrant spices, and carefully wrapped ceramics protected against the long miles ahead. Around you, familiar voices exchange quiet greetings, while the cool morning air still carries the freshness of the fading night. Beyond the city gates, the road disappears into soft mist, inviting you toward one of history's greatest journeys. The city awakens with remarkable gentleness, as though every street understands that another long journey is about to begin. The first sunlight reaches the highest roof tiles before slowly descending into narrow lanes where stone pavements still hold the coolness of the night. Wooden shutters open one after another, revealing workshops already alive with quiet industry. A blacksmith tends a modest fire, whose warm glow reflects across polished tools rather than blazing dramatically into the morning. Nearby, weavers carefully inspect folded bolts of silk, whose smooth surfaces catch the growing light like still water. Potters arrange freshly fired vessels upon sturdy shelves, while carpenters examine wagon wheels with patient attention, tightening wooden pegs that must remain reliable through thousands of peaceful miles. The city does not rush. It prepares itself with the calm confidence of a place that has watched caravans depart for countless generations, knowing that every successful journey begins long before the first footsteps leave the gates. Walking a few steps ahead of you is a Sogdian merchant named Farid. His family has crossed these roads for generations, and nothing about the morning seems unfamiliar to him. Every knot securing the cargo is tied with quiet confidence. Every bundle has its place. He rarely raises his voice because he never needs to. Experience has taught him that the Silk Road rewards patience far more generously than haste. Throughout your journey, Farid will occasionally draw your attention to the small details that only someone who has spent a lifetime upon these ancient roads would naturally notice. The road has become his oldest companion. The courtyard outside the merchant's home has become a quiet center of activity. Family members move steadily between storerooms and waiting pack animals, carrying bundles wrapped in woven cloth that protects valuable cargo from dust and changing weather. Elder relatives offer practical advice, gathered through long experience, recalling which mountain passes remain cooler late into spring, where reliable wells may still be found during dry seasons, and which caravanserais provide particularly welcoming shelter. Younger helpers listen carefully while tying secure knots around wooden crates. Children observe everything with wide curiosity, perhaps imagining that one day they too will follow these ancient roads. The atmosphere feels thoughtful rather than emotional. Departures have become familiar rhythms within families whose lives have long been shaped by the steady flow of commerce across distant lands. At the center of your journey stand the animals whose quiet strength makes every mile possible. In the eastern regions, sturdy horses and patient mules carry lighter loads across cultivated landscapes and gentle hills. Their coats have been brushed until they shine softly beneath the morning sun, while saddles are adjusted with careful precision to avoid discomfort during long days of travel. Stable hands examine hooves for even the smallest signs of wear, understanding that healthy animals are among the caravan's greatest treasures. Buckets of fresh water stand nearby beside baskets filled with grain, allowing each animal to begin the journey well-nourished and well-rested. Their calm breathing and occasional gentle movements become part of the peaceful rhythm surrounding the preparations. Farther west, where deserts stretch across immense distances, another remarkable companion awaits its role in the journey. The Bactrian camel, distinguished by its two broad humps and thick coat, has adapted beautifully to the demanding landscapes of Central Asia. Standing with quiet dignity, these animals seem almost perfectly designed for the Silk Road itself. Their broad feet distribute weight across loose sand, allowing them to cross desert terrain with steady confidence. Thick eyelashes help shield sensitive eyes from drifting dust, while closable nostrils provide protection during windy conditions. Their humps store fat rather than water, providing valuable energy during long stretches between abundant grazing. Generations of caravan leaders have trusted these patient creatures, whose measured pace encourages travelers to move with the landscape rather than against it. As the camels kneel to receive their loads, experienced handlers speak softly, maintaining a relationship built upon familiarity and mutual dependence. Farid pauses beside one of the camels, running a practiced hand along its thick coat, before giving a quiet nod of approval. He has performed the same simple ritual before every departure for as long as he can remember. Packing the caravan resembles a carefully practiced art. Heavy goods must be balanced with remarkable precision, so that neither side of an animal bears excessive weight. Wooden frames fitted over saddles distribute pressure evenly, while thick blankets cushion valuable cargo against constant movement. Fragile ceramics rest inside baskets lined with straw or soft textiles. Glass vessels imported from Western workshops receive similar protection, wrapped carefully before being placed inside wooden crates. Silk requires different treatment altogether. Folded with extraordinary care, each bolt is protected from moisture and unnecessary creasing, preserving the smooth texture that distant buyers admire so greatly. Every knot securing these bundles reflects quiet experience, tied firmly enough to endure months of travel, yet designed for easy inspection whenever customs officials or trading partners request examination of the cargo. The variety of goods assembled within the caravan reveals how richly interconnected these ancient routes have become. Fine silk remains among the most valuable exports, its shimmering fabric destined for noble households, royal courts, and prosperous merchants across distant regions. Alongside it travel carefully crafted lacquerware, whose polished surfaces display remarkable craftsmanship, delicate porcelain vessels shaped with elegant simplicity, and bundles of tea harvested from mist-covered hills, where generations of farmers have cultivated the same slopes. There are packets of medicinal herbs gathered from mountain valleys, carved jade ornaments polished until they glow softly in the light, and paper produced through techniques still unfamiliar to many lands farther west. Each item carries not only commercial value, but also the accumulated knowledge of artisans whose skills have matured through centuries of careful practice. The supplies intended not for trade, but for daily living, receive equal attention. Large sacks of grain form the foundation of many meals, accompanied by dried beans, preserved vegetables, and cakes of compressed tea that travel well over long distances. Salt, precious both for flavor and preservation, occupies sturdy containers protected from moisture. Small jars hold fragrant oils, while cloth bags contain spices, valued not only for their taste, but also for their ability to improve simple meals prepared beside distant campfires. Cooking pots made from durable bronze or iron nest neatly within one another to conserve space. Wooden bowls, chopsticks, simple knives, and water containers complete the traveling kitchen, ensuring that familiar routines may continue even far from home. Practicality guides every decision, reflecting the understanding that comfort often grows from small daily habits maintained with consistency. Clothing, too, has been selected with thoughtful care. Travelers wear garments designed less for display than for changing climates encountered along the route. Soft linen and lightweight hemp provide comfort during warmer days, while thicker woolen layers await colder mountain evenings. Wide sleeves allow freedom of movement while protecting the skin from persistent sunlight. Broad hats woven from straw offer welcome shade, and sturdy leather boots support countless miles of walking over varied terrain. Cloaks, rolled tightly and secured beside saddles, serve multiple purposes as protection against cool winds, blankets during restful nights, or cushions while sitting upon rocky ground. Every piece of clothing balances durability with comfort, acknowledging that the journey rewards those prepared for gradual changes rather than sudden extremes. Maps, as modern travellers might imagine them, remain relatively uncommon. Instead, experienced merchants carry something perhaps even more valuable: memory shaped by repeated journeys. Directions live within carefully described landmarks, familiar riverbends, distinctive mountain silhouettes, ancient watchtowers, temples, wells, and groves of trees that have guided generations before them. Written itineraries sometimes accompany these memories, recording estimated distances between settlements or noting seasonal conditions affecting particular routes. Conversations with other merchants provide equally valuable information. Over shared meals and quiet evenings, travellers exchange news of road conditions, market prices, recent harvests, political developments, and weather patterns. This constantly renewed network of practical knowledge becomes as essential to successful travel as food or water. Beyond the practical preparations lies another quieter aspect of departure. Many travellers pause briefly before family shrines or local temples, offering simple prayers or expressions of gratitude according to their traditions. Some burn fragrant incense, whose gentle smoke rises into the still morning air. Others bow respectfully before ancestors whose own lives may have followed similar roads. Buddhist monks chant peaceful verses within nearby monasteries, while followers of Taoist practices seek harmony, with the natural rhythms guiding both people and landscapes. Throughout the wider Silk Road, travellers of many faiths, including Zoroastrians, Hindus, Jews, Christians, and later Muslims, will carry their own customs, each finding quiet comfort in familiar rituals before long journeys. These moments remain deeply personal, reflecting hope, gratitude, and the recognition that every successful expedition depends upon many circumstances beyond careful planning alone. Outside the city walls, the road waits with patient certainty. Farmers already tend nearby fields where young crops sway gently beneath the growing warmth of the sun. Water channels sparkle as they carry mountain snowmelt toward orchards heavy with promise. Birds move between branches lining the roadside, while distant hills gradually emerge from the soft haze of early morning. The landscape itself seems to welcome travellers without demanding haste. Every season brings its own pace. Spring offers fresh grazing and flowing rivers. Summer encourages earlier departures before midday. Warmth settles across open country. Autumn rewards caravans with abundant harvests available in village markets, while winter invites careful timing to avoid mountain snows. The experienced merchant learns to travel with these rhythms rather than attempting to overcome them. As more caravans gather near the gates, a quiet sense of companionship begins to form among people who may have started the morning as strangers. Caravan leaders greet one another with respectful nods, comparing the sizes of their groups and discussing possible routes ahead. Skilled guides examine the sky with practiced eyes, noticing the direction of gentle winds or the appearance of distant clouds. Animal handlers make final adjustments to saddles and harnesses, while cooks ensure that the first day's meals remain easily accessible. The soft sounds surrounding the gathering create their own peaceful music. The rustle of cloth, the creak of leather straps, the occasional low call of a camel, the steady footsteps of horses upon packed earth, and the quiet conversations of travellers preparing to share many weeks upon the same roads. The great wooden gates of the city remain open, framing the beginning of a journey that countless others have undertaken before. Yet, for every traveller standing here this morning, the road ahead remains wonderfully fresh. Familiar destinations will reveal new seasons. Trusted friends will have gathered new stories, and distant markets will offer unexpected conversations alongside expected trade. Every departure carries both continuity and quiet possibility. The final bundles have been secured, the animals stand ready beneath balanced loads, and the first gentle steps toward the horizon are almost ready to begin. The morning sun has now climbed gently above the rooftops, casting long bands of golden light across the broad avenue leading toward the city gates. The air remains pleasantly cool, carrying the faint fragrance of damp earth, fresh bread, and wood smoke rising from household kitchens, where many families continue the quiet routines of ordinary life. Within the walls, merchants finish their final conversations with neighbours, while craftsmen return to workshops that will continue their steady work long after today's caravan has disappeared beyond the horizon. A city shaped by generations of trade understands that departures and arrivals are simply different moments within the same enduring rhythm. There is no great ceremony, no hurried farewell, only calm acknowledgements exchanged between people who trust that the roads connecting distant lands will, in time, also lead many travellers safely home again. The caravan begins to move almost so gradually that the change is difficult to notice. One camel rises from its resting position with deliberate patience, followed by another, until the line slowly gathers into motion. Horses step forward with quiet confidence, their hooves producing a gentle, measured sound upon the packed roadway. Wooden wheels begin their familiar turning, carrying wagons whose loads have been balanced with careful attention during the previous day's preparations. Bells hanging from harnesses produce soft, irregular notes that blend naturally with the footsteps of animals and the murmured conversations of their handlers. No one urges the caravan into haste. The first miles of any journey are always approached with steady caution, allowing every traveller and every animal to settle comfortably into the pace that will guide them across many months of travel. As the procession approaches the city gate, the impressive architecture surrounding the entrance reveals much about the civilization from which these travellers depart. Thick defensive walls, constructed from carefully packed earth, stone, or brick depending upon the region, rise steadily above the road. Watchtowers stand at regular intervals, their upper platforms offering wide views across the surrounding countryside. Heavy wooden gates, strengthened with iron fittings, remain fully open during the daylight hours, welcoming farmers, traders, officials, and visitors moving between city and countryside. Guards observe the departing caravan with calm professionalism, recording cargo when required, and exchanging respectful greetings with merchants whose faces have become familiar through years of repeated journeys. The gate serves not merely as a defensive structure, but as a quiet threshold where the ordered life of the city gradually gives way to the wider landscapes beyond. Passing beneath the shadow of those great walls carries a subtle emotional weight. Behind lie familiar streets whose every corner holds memories accumulated over many years. Family homes rest safely within neighborhoods where children play beneath flowering trees, where market squares fill with familiar voices, and where festivals return according to the steady rhythm of the seasons. Ahead stretches a road whose destinations are known, but whose daily experiences remain unwritten. the merchant does not dwell upon uncertainty. Experience has taught that every journey unfolds one day at a time, revealing its character gradually through changing weather, welcoming villages, peaceful campsites, and countless ordinary encounters. Leaving home is not an act of separation so much as an extension of life itself, for the Silk Road has long connected distant places into a single, slowly moving world. Beyond the city walls, the landscape opens with remarkable gentleness. Fields spread across the surrounding countryside in carefully tended patterns shaped by generations of patient cultivation. Rows of millet, wheat, barley, or rice, depending upon the region, sway softly beneath the morning breeze. Irrigation channels sparkle in the sunlight, carrying clear water from nearby rivers toward orchards, where apricot, peach, pear, and mulberry trees flourish. Farmers move steadily through their work, occasionally pausing to watch the passing caravan before returning to familiar tasks. Oxen draw wooden ploughs through fertile soil, while baskets woven from reeds rest beside newly harvested vegetables, waiting to be carried into the city markets. The caravan's slow movement feels perfectly at home within this peaceful agricultural landscape, where human life has long followed the dependable rhythms of planting, tending, and harvest. The road itself bears the quiet marks of countless travelers who have walked this way across many centuries. Rather than a paved highway stretching perfectly toward the horizon, it appears as a broad, well-worn track whose surface changes according to the surrounding terrain. In some places, packed earth has become smooth beneath generations of footsteps and wagon wheels. Elsewhere, small stones provide firmer footing where seasonal rains might otherwise soften the ground. Occasional wooden bridges cross gentle streams, while larger rivers are approached through carefully maintained crossings known to local communities. The road rarely forces itself upon the landscape. Instead, it follows natural contours, winding around hills, tracing riverbanks, and seeking the easiest passage through valleys. Its course reflects accumulated wisdom gathered over countless journeys, rather than the ambitions of a single builder. As the caravan settles into its steady rhythm, each traveler begins to rediscover the quiet routines that define life upon the road. Conversation gradually gives way to comfortable silence as attention turns toward the simple act of walking. Some merchants count their steps unconsciously, while others allow their thoughts to drift gently between memories of home and expectations for distant markets. Experienced guides occasionally glance toward the surrounding hills, confirming familiar landmarks whose shapes remain reassuring companions along the route. Animal handlers walk beside their camels and horses, observing their pace, adjusting straps when necessary, and offering gentle encouragement through calm voices and practiced gestures. Every member of the caravan contributes to a shared rhythm that values consistency above speed. The sounds accompanying the journey soon become wonderfully familiar. Leather harnesses creak softly with each measured step. Wooden wheels murmur against the earth without haste or strain. Camel bells continue their quiet, irregular music, never repeating exactly the same pattern, yet always blending harmoniously into the background of the day's travel. Birds call from hedgerows bordering cultivated fields, while distant streams add their own steady voices to the landscape. Occasionally, the breeze carries the faint ringing of a temple bell from a village hidden among groves of trees. None of these sounds demands attention. Together, They create a peaceful tapestry that accompanies travelers hour after hour, encouraging the mind to settle into the gentle flow of the journey itself. The villages appearing along the first stages of the route remain closely connected to the nearby city while preserving their own distinct character. Low houses constructed from timber, brick, or packed earth gather around central wells or small market squares where local trade continues throughout the day. Roofs covered with clay tiles or neatly arranged thatch blend naturally into the surrounding countryside. Kitchen gardens overflow with seasonal vegetables, while chickens wander freely between shaded courtyards. Elderly villagers sit comfortably beneath broad trees, observing the passing caravan with quiet interest born from long familiarity. Children wave cheerfully before returning to games played beside irrigation channels or village paths. Travelers rarely linger during these early hours, yet even brief encounters remind them that the Silk Road belongs not only to distant cities, but also to the many small communities whose hospitality quietly supports life upon the route. The merchant notices familiar details that often escape those travelling for the first time. He observes the condition of roadside trees, whose healthy leaves suggest adequate rainfall during recent weeks. He notes the level of nearby streams, understanding that abundant water now may indicate easier crossings farther ahead. The appearance of local livestock offers another quiet measure of regional prosperity, while conversations overheard in village markets sometimes reveal useful information about harvests, weather, or road conditions beyond the next range of hills. Such observations require neither urgency nor suspicion. They simply reflect a lifetime spent understanding that successful travel grows from careful attention to ordinary details repeated day after day. As the morning gradually unfolds, the city walls behind the caravan begin to fade into the soft distance. Towers that once dominated the horizon now appear smaller, their outlines gently softened by the growing warmth of the day. Before long, they become little more than pale shapes resting beneath the sky, eventually disappearing altogether beyond low hills and clusters of trees. Few travelers turn back to watch this slow transformation. The road ahead naturally invites the eye forward, not through excitement, but through quiet curiosity. Each bend reveals another peaceful view, a line of poplar trees shimmering beside a stream, distant farmhouses surrounded by fields, grazing animals moving across gentle slopes, or blue mountains standing patiently upon the far horizon like familiar companions waiting to welcome future travelers. By midday, the pace of the caravan remains unchanged. The steady rhythm established during the morning has proven comfortable for both people and animals. A broad grove of willow and elm trees beside a clear stream offers an inviting place for the day's first extended rest. Here, loads remain secured, while the animals drink deeply from cool water and graze upon nearby grasses. Travelers spread simple woven mats beneath the shade, unpacking modest meals prepared before dawn. Bowls of steamed grain, preserved vegetables, dried fruit, flatbread, and warm tea provide quiet nourishment without ceremony. Conversation returns naturally as companions share observations from the morning's travel or exchange stories, remembered from previous journeys along these same familiar roads. Laughter arises occasionally, never loud enough to disturb the peaceful surroundings, before fading once more into the gentle sounds of flowing water and rustling leaves. Resting beside the stream also offers time to appreciate how slowly the world reveals itself when measured by the pace of walking animals rather than hurried ambition. The reflections dancing upon the water change with every passing cloud. Dragonflies hover briefly above reeds growing along the bank. A fisherman farther downstream patiently tends his simple nets, while swallows sweep gracefully across the open air, gathering insects above the surface. Even the caravan seems transformed during these quiet pauses. Bundles carefully stacked upon camels appear less like commercial cargo and more like companions, waiting patiently for the afternoon's journey to continue. The road encourages such moments of observation, teaching that movement and stillness belong equally to the life of travel. As the shadows begin their slow shift toward the east, preparations for the afternoon unfold with the same calm efficiency shown earlier that morning. Water containers are refilled, blankets folded neatly once again, and animals gently encouraged back to their steady pace. The merchant glances briefly toward the road stretching ahead, where cultivated fields will gradually give way to broader valleys and more distant landscapes. The first stage of departure is now complete. Home remains present in memory, yet the journey itself has quietly become the traveller's new daily world, measured not by the distance already left behind, but by the peaceful miles still waiting beyond the next gentle curve of the ancient road. By the time another dawn quietly arrives, the countryside has begun to unfold into a wider world. The familiar fields surrounding the great city now lie many peaceful miles behind, replaced by valleys that seem to breathe with the slow rhythm of the earth itself. A pale mist lingers above winding streams before gradually lifting beneath the gentle warmth of the rising sun. Dew rests upon long grasses, catching the first light in countless tiny reflections that shimmer briefly before disappearing into the morning. The caravan moves forward with the same measured pace that has guided travellers here for centuries, its steady procession becoming a small and harmonious part of the landscape, rather than a presence that disturbs it. Every step feels unhurried, allowing the surrounding world to reveal itself gradually, one quiet horizon after another. The Silk Road crossed landscapes of extraordinary variety, yet each possessed its own calm beauty when experienced at the pace of those who walked it. Rather than presenting dramatic changes from one day to the next, nature unfolded slowly, almost imperceptibly, through subtle differences in vegetation, elevation, and light. A traveller might spend several days following a broad river whose gentle current reflected changing skies before noticing that the surrounding hills had become slightly steeper, the air a little cooler, and the forests gradually thicker. Such transitions rewarded careful observation. The road encouraged patience, teaching its travellers that the earth rarely hurried from one season or one landscape to another. Instead, every environment blended softly into the next, creating a continuous journey rather than a series of separate destinations. The valleys through which the caravan now travels are rich with life, shaped by rivers descending from distant mountains. These waterways have quietly sustained human communities for thousands of years, carrying fresh water through fertile plains where villages and orchards flourish. Along their banks grow graceful willows whose slender branches sway gently in the breeze, while poplar trees rise tall above fields of grain. Wildflowers scatter colour across meadows, where bees move steadily between blossoms, and small birds build careful nests among reeds growing beside calm pools of water. The merchant notices how every settlement has chosen its place with quiet wisdom, never far from dependable streams that provide water for drinking, irrigation, cooking, and countless daily tasks. Here, geography has become the patient architect of civilization. As the caravan advances farther west, the horizon slowly begins to change. Gentle hills gradually gather into larger ridges whose outlines appear increasingly distinct against the brightening sky. These mountains are not obstacles waiting to challenge the traveller, but ancient companions whose presence quietly shapes everything around them. Snow resting upon their highest peaks reflects sunlight long after lower valleys have entered evening shadow. Streams born from melting ice descend through rocky slopes, joining together to form rivers that nourish fields many days' journey away. Forests cloak their lower elevations with deep green, while higher slopes reveal scattered alpine meadows where hardy flowers bloom during the brief warmth of summer. The mountains seem timeless, watching countless generations pass beneath their silent presence without ever demanding attention for themselves. Experienced travelers understand that mountains influence more than scenery alone. They guide weather, creating cool breezes that drift into valleys during warm afternoons. Clouds gather around their highest ridges before releasing gentle rain that refreshes forests and streams below. Even the direction of travel often follows their contours, seeking natural passes discovered long ago by shepherds, hunters, and early traders. Rather than attempting to conquer these heights directly, the Silk Road learned to cooperate with them, following routes that balanced safety, practicality, and respect for the landscape's natural rhythms. This quiet partnership between human movement and geography became one of the defining characteristics of the ancient trade network. Forests soon begin to accompany the road more closely, offering welcome shade beneath their spreading branches. Depending upon the region, the trees vary in both appearance and fragrance. Stately pines perfume the cool air with fresh resin, while broad-leaved oaks, maples, and elms create rich canopies where sunlight filters softly through countless leaves. In some places, groves of birch shimmer gently, their pale trunks reflect in morning light with quiet elegance. Moss carpets shaded rocks, and ferns unfold beside narrow woodland streams whose clear waters flow almost silently over smooth stones. The caravan passes through these forests with respectful calm. Travelers lower their voices almost instinctively, allowing the natural sounds surrounding them to become more noticeable than human conversation. Within the forest, life continues according to its own peaceful rhythm. Deer emerge cautiously from among the trees during the early morning before disappearing once more into deeper woodland. Small squirrels leap effortlessly between branches, gathering seeds and nuts for seasons yet to come. Brightly colored birds sing from hidden perches, their melodies echoing softly beneath the leafy canopy. Occasionally, the distant tapping of a woodpecker blends with the gentle murmur of flowing water, while butterflies drift slowly through patches of sunlight that reach the forest floor. Nothing appears hurried. Every creature seems perfectly suited to its surroundings, contributing quietly to an environment where countless forms of life exist together in delicate balance. Travelers often pause briefly within such places, appreciating the cool shade, before continuing their steady progress. The changing light throughout the day transforms each landscape without altering its essential character. Morning reveals crisp outlines and fresh colours still touched by lingering dew. As the sun climbs higher, shadows shorten and distant hills appear softened beneath warm, shimmering air. Afternoon brings golden light that settles gently across fields and riverbanks, while evening introduces longer shadows stretching peacefully across the road. Sunset paints mountain peaks with delicate shades of amber and rose, before gradually yielding to the cool blue tones of approaching twilight. The merchant has witnessed these daily transitions so often that they feel as familiar as the turning pages of a well-loved book. Each sunrise promises another measured day's travel, while every evening offers quiet rest beneath stars that have guided generations before him. Gradually, the forests begin to thin, replaced by broader grasslands extending toward distant horizons. Here, the world feels wonderfully open. Tall grasses ripple beneath the breeze like gentle waves upon an endless sea, changing colour with a shifting angle of sunlight. During spring and early summer, countless wildflowers bloom across these plains, creating subtle patterns of blue, yellow, white, and purple that seem almost to flow alongside the wind itself. Herds of grazing animals move peacefully through the landscape, watched carefully by shepherds whose lives have long followed the seasonal rhythms of these open lands. Their simple tents stand lightly upon the earth, designed to be assembled, dismantled, and carried onward as fresh pasture invites both people and livestock toward new grazing grounds. These grasslands have long connected settled farming communities with the nomadic cultures of Central Asia. Horsemen skilled in travelling vast distances across open country have crossed these plains for centuries, carrying news, goods, and traditions between regions that might otherwise have remained isolated. Their deep understanding of weather, water sources, and seasonal migration complements the knowledge held by farmers living beside rivers and cultivated fields. Along the Silk Road, these different ways of life meet naturally through trade and mutual respect. A merchant may exchange woven cloth for sturdy horses, while shepherds acquire metal tools, grain, or tea unavailable upon the open steppe. Such exchanges remind every traveller that the road belongs equally to those who build permanent homes and those whose homes move gently with the changing seasons. Farther ahead, another landscape begins to appear, one whose quiet beauty has inspired travellers for thousands of years. The first signs are subtle. The grasses become shorter, the air slightly drier, and clusters of hardy shrubs replace the lush vegetation of river valleys. Sand begins to gather in small patches where the wind lingers longest, while distant hills take on softer outlines beneath a pale, brilliant sky. The great deserts of Central Asia do not arrive suddenly. They announce themselves with patience, allowing travellers ample time to prepare both practically and mentally for the changing environment ahead. Wells become more carefully noted, water containers inspected with greater attention, and daily distances adjusted to suit the landscape's quieter demands. At first glance, the desert before you may seem almost empty, yet the longer you travel through it, the more quiet life you begin to notice. Low-growing plants send deep roots toward hidden moisture beneath the sand. Small birds dart between scattered bushes during the cool hours of morning and evening. Lizards bask briefly upon sun-warmed stones, before disappearing into shaded crevices, while hardy insects continue their quiet work amongst sparse vegetation. Even the dunes themselves possess a surprising gentleness. Their graceful curves shift gradually beneath the influence of steady winds, creating patterns that seem to change almost imperceptibly from one season to the next. At sunrise and sunset, these sands reflect soft golden light with extraordinary beauty, transforming the desert into a landscape of calm elegance rather than harsh emptiness. Whenever you reach a spring, stream, or oasis, you immediately understand why water has always been the greatest gift along these changing landscapes. Date palms, poplars, tamarisk trees, and fruit orchards flourish wherever dependable water reaches the surface. Birds fill the branches with quiet song, while gardens provide welcome shade for both travelers and local communities. Such places have naturally become centers of settlement, giving rise to villages and towns whose markets welcome caravans arriving after many peaceful days across open country. The merchant understands that these green islands within the wider landscape are not isolated miracles, but essential links within the great chain of travel stretching across continents. As evening approaches once more, the caravan climbs a gentle rise overlooking a broad valley, where a winding river reflects the fading sky. Beyond it stand distant mountains, their snow-covered summits glowing softly beneath the last light of the day. Between river and mountain lie forests, grasslands, cultivated fields, and small villages whose evening cooking fires send delicate threads of smoke into the still air. Looking across this vast landscape, it becomes easy to understand why the Silk Road endured for so many centuries. It was never simply a road connecting cities. It was a quiet conversation with geography itself, following rivers where water flowed, valleys where passage was easiest, forests where shade welcomed travelers, grasslands where horses grazed freely, and deserts whose patient beauty taught every traveler the value of moving slowly with the natural world. With the broad landscapes now becoming familiar companions, the journey gradually settles into its most enduring rhythm. The excitement of departure has quietly faded, and the distant destination still lies many peaceful weeks ahead. Between these 2 points stretches the gentle routine that defines life upon the Silk Road. It is here, within the ordinary days, rather than the extraordinary moments, that the true character of the journey reveals itself. Travelers awaken, walk, rest, prepare meals, tend to animals, exchange quiet conversations, and fall asleep beneath changing skies, only to repeat these simple patterns again with calm consistency. Over time, these routines become wonderfully comforting. The road is no longer an unfamiliar path leading away from home, but a temporary home of its own, shaped by habit, companionship, and the steady movement from one sunrise to the next. Long before the first hint of dawn brightens the eastern horizon, you become aware that the camp around you is quietly waking. Above, the stars that guided countless generations of travelers still shine with remarkable clarity, while a cool breeze drifts softly through the sleeping caravan. Somewhere nearby, one of the camels exhales a slow, familiar breath. A blanket rustles. A small cooking fire is gently coaxed back to life from embers hidden beneath the ashes of the previous evening. Walking a short distance away, Farid is already awake, checking the ropes securing the cargo, with the same calm patience he has shown every morning since leaving Xi'an. No words are needed. Every movement reflects long experience rather than urgency. Morning begins with familiar tasks performed almost without thought. Blankets woven from wool or thick cotton are folded carefully before being tied once again to saddles and wagons. Sleeping mats are rolled tightly to protect them from moisture and dust. Tent ropes are loosened, wooden poles stacked neatly together, and woven canvas folded with practiced precision. Every item has its proper place within the caravan, for orderly packing saves valuable time and prevents unnecessary wear during the long journey. Younger travelers learn these routines by watching older companions whose hands move with quiet confidence, repeating gestures perfected over many seasons. There is no need for instruction shouted across the camp. Experience passes naturally through observation, patience, and the calm repetition of daily work. Nothing here feels hurried. Nearby, the animals begin another familiar morning alongside you. Camels stretch their long necks toward the growing light, while horses lower their heads to graze upon fresh grasses still damp with dew. Mules and donkeys patiently await the attention of their handlers, who brush dust from their coats before inspecting hooves, harnesses, and saddles. Every animal receives careful examination, for even a small irritation left unnoticed could become uncomfortable after many hours upon the road. Water is offered generously whenever available, followed by grain, hay, or whatever suitable forage the surrounding landscape provides. The relationship between travelers and their animals is built not merely upon necessity, but upon daily familiarity. They have learned one another's habits, preferences, and quiet signals through weeks or months spent traveling side by side. Breakfast is simple, nourishing, and wonderfully consistent. Few travelers seek elaborate meals before beginning a day's walk. Instead, warm porridge, prepared from millet, barley, or wheat, provides steady energy for the hours ahead. Flatbread baked during previous evenings remains fresh enough to accompany preserved vegetables, dried fruits, or small portions of cheese, depending upon the region. Tea occupies an increasingly important place in many Eastern caravans, its comforting warmth offering both refreshment and gentle alertness, as the cool morning gradually gives way to daylight. In other parts of the Silk Road, travelers may drink fermented milk, herbal infusions, or clear spring water collected from nearby streams. Meals are rarely hurried. Even modest breakfasts become moments of quiet companionship before the caravan once again resumes its patient movement across the landscape. The familiar meal feels comforting, much like returning to the same favorite breakfast each morning before beginning another day, reminding you that even long journeys are built upon simple routines repeated with quiet care. Soon the familiar procession forms once more. The bells attached to camel harnesses begin their soft, uneven music as each animal rises beneath carefully balanced loads. Wagon wheels settle into their steady turning, and the first footsteps of the day carry the caravan gently forward. Hours pass almost unnoticed. Conversation comes and goes naturally, sometimes filling the road with stories gathered from previous journeys, while at other times every traveller walks comfortably within peaceful silence. The steady rhythm of movement encourages quiet reflection. Many merchants review future trading plans in their thoughts, while pilgrims recite familiar prayers or passages from sacred texts committed carefully to memory. Others simply observe the changing landscape with unhurried attention, discovering new details within places they may have crossed many times before. Farid glances back with a small, reassuring smile before quietly taking his usual place near the front of the caravan. the pace of travel remains deliberately measured. Experienced caravan leaders understand that endurance grows from consistency rather than speed. Animals are never pushed beyond their comfortable rhythm, and travelers themselves conserve energy by maintaining even, relaxed strides throughout the day. Frequent pauses allow saddles to be adjusted, water to be shared, and the surrounding landscape to be appreciated. If a stream crosses the road, the caravan lingers long enough for every animal to drink peacefully. If broad trees provide generous shade during the warmest hours, woven mats are spread beneath their branches while meals are prepared and conversations continue quietly. The journey becomes less about covering impressive distances than about preserving strength, health, and harmony over many months of travel. Every step has its own rhythm. The midday meal often reflects the remarkable diversity of cultures connected by the Silk Road. Rice accompanies vegetables in some regions, while barley, wheat, or millet serve as the foundation elsewhere. Dried meat preserved with salt provides valuable nourishment during longer stretches between settlements, although fresh fish may occasionally appear when rivers offer generous catches. Travelers flavor their meals with onions, garlic, herbs, and modest quantities of precious spices carefully carried within small cloth bags. Simple soups simmer gently above modest fires, filling the air with comforting aromas that mingle naturally with the fragrance of surrounding grasses, forests, or desert shrubs. Every meal remains practical, yet none feels lacking. The satisfaction comes not from abundance, but from the quiet pleasure of sharing familiar food beneath open skies with trusted companions. Cooking itself becomes one of the day's most peaceful rituals. Bronze or iron pots are placed carefully above small fires fueled by gathered branches, dried grasses, or compact cakes of animal dung in regions where wood remains scarce. Water begins to steam gently while cooks stir grains with wooden spoons polished smooth through years of use. Tea leaves unfurl slowly within warm water, releasing delicate fragrances carried softly upon the breeze. Nearby, bread warms beside glowing embers, and fresh herbs are chopped upon simple wooden boards worn smooth by countless meals prepared along these same roads. No elaborate kitchens are needed. Skill, patience, and familiarity transform the simplest ingredients into nourishing meals that sustain both body and spirit throughout the long journey. Farid always waits until everyone else has been served before quietly filling his own wooden bowl, a habit that speaks of quiet generosity, more clearly than words ever could. Afternoons often bring subtle changes in weather that experienced travelers have learned to welcome rather than resist. A gentle breeze rises across open grasslands, carrying welcome coolness after the warmth of midday. Thin clouds drift slowly across the sky, softening the sunlight without threatening rain. In mountain valleys, cooler air descends gradually from higher slopes, refreshing both people and animals. During warmer seasons, travelers adjust their pace naturally, resting longer during the hottest hours before continuing when shadows begin to lengthen once again. Rather than struggling against nature's rhythms, the caravan moves in quiet partnership with them, allowing each day to unfold according to the gentle guidance of wind, sunlight, and season. Navigation along the Silk Road depends upon careful observation rather than complex instruments. Experienced guides recognize distant mountain peaks whose outlines have become trusted landmarks through repeated journeys. Rivers indicate direction as reliably as any written map, while familiar rock formations, ancient watchtowers, temples, groves of distinctive trees, and caravanserais confirm progress along established routes. During clear nights, the stars provide equally dependable guidance. Travelers learn to recognize familiar constellations whose slow movement across the heavens reflects the passage of both hours and seasons. This intimate relationship with the natural world creates a quiet confidence that no hurried traveler could easily acquire. The landscape itself becomes a patient teacher, offering direction to those willing to observe it carefully. As daylight gradually softens toward evening, thoughts begin to turn naturally toward finding a suitable campsite. Experienced caravan leaders seek places combining several practical qualities. Fresh water remains the greatest priority, followed by level ground suitable for animals and tents. Trees offering modest shelter from wind are welcomed whenever available, while open views across the surrounding landscape allow both comfort and easy observation of approaching travelers. Sometimes an established caravanserai appears at just the right moment, its sturdy walls and welcoming courtyard providing restful accommodation. At other times, nature itself offers everything required for a peaceful night beneath the open sky. The road waits patiently. The evening camp forms with quiet efficiency born from long practice. Animals are relieved of their loads before being allowed to graze or rest nearby. Saddles, ropes, and harnesses receive careful inspection, ensuring that any small repairs can be completed before the following morning. Cooking fires once again illuminate the gathering dusk with soft, welcoming light. Travelers wash dust from their hands and faces, using cool water carried from nearby streams or wells. Some mend clothing worn gently by the day's travel, while others write brief notes recording distances covered, goods exchanged, or observations useful for future journeys. Merchants occasionally review their ledgers beneath lantern light, confirming that every valuable bundle remains safely secured. Evening conversations possess their own gentle character. Stories travel almost as faithfully as goods along the Silk Road. Older merchants recall memorable landscapes visited many years earlier, or describe distant cities whose markets overflow with unfamiliar treasures. Pilgrims speak quietly about temples, monasteries, and sacred places awaiting them farther along the route. Animal handlers compare the personalities of their trusted camels and horses, smiling softly at familiar habits developed through months of companionship. Sometimes musicians carry small flutes or stringed instruments whose gentle melodies drift peacefully through the camp, blending with the crackling of the fire and the quiet sounds of animals settling for the night. No audience gathers formally. Music simply becomes another natural part of the evening, as welcome as the warmth of tea or the comfort of shared company. As darkness deepens, the sky reveals one of the Silk Road's greatest companions. Far from the bright lights of great cities, the stars appear in extraordinary abundance, filling the heavens with quiet brilliance. The broad band of the Milky Way stretches from horizon to horizon, inspiring wonder in travelers from every culture and every faith. Some see familiar stories among the constellations, while others simply appreciate their steady presence above each night's resting place. The same stars shine over distant kingdoms, deserts, forests, mountains, and seas, quietly reminding every traveler that although the Silk Road crosses countless landscapes, it remains one continuous journey beneath a single sky. Eventually, the camp grows still. Cooking fires settle into glowing embers, conversations fade gently into silence, and the day's footsteps become only memories resting upon the ancient road. Wrapped in warm blankets, you settle beneath the same immense sky that has watched over travelers for countless generations. Nearby, the quiet breathing of the animals blends gently with the evening breeze, while Farid's lantern is the last small light to disappear before the camp finally surrenders itself to peaceful silence. Another morning arrives with the same quiet certainty that has guided countless journeys before this one. A soft veil of mist hangs above the river where the caravan spent the night, drifting gently across the water before dissolving beneath the first warmth of the rising sun. Birds greet the dawn from groves of poplar and willow, while nearby cooking fires awaken once more with small, steady flames. The travellers prepare for another day's walk with the familiar confidence that now comes from many weeks upon the road. Their movements require few words. Every bundle is secured, every animal patiently loaded, and every companion naturally falls into the rhythm that has become the heartbeat of the journey. Ahead, the road continues toward lands where new faces, languages, and traditions quietly await, each adding another thread to the remarkable tapestry of the Silk Road. One of the most peaceful discoveries along these ancient routes is that every settlement, no matter how distant or unfamiliar, possesses its own gentle rhythm of daily life. Travelers may cross mountains, deserts, forests, and broad grasslands, yet, wherever people have found dependable water and fertile ground, communities have grown with remarkable care and resilience. Some settlements consist of only a handful of homes gathered around a spring, while others have developed into thriving towns, surrounded by protective walls and lively marketplaces. Each reflects the landscape that supports it. River valleys encourage broad fields and orchards. Mountain villages cluster along sheltered slopes, and desert oases flourish wherever hidden water reaches the surface. The caravan moves through these communities, not as an interruption, but as a familiar presence, welcomed by generations accustomed to the quiet flow of travelers passing through their lives. As the road leads farther west, the variety of languages becomes one of its most remarkable features. In the eastern provinces, merchants greet one another in forms of Chinese that differ subtly from region to region, shaped by local accents and traditions. A few days farther along, conversations begin to include the languages of Central Asian peoples, whose ancestors have travelled these plains for centuries. Sogdian merchants speak with remarkable ease to customers from many lands, becoming celebrated not only for their commercial skill, but also for their extraordinary ability to communicate across cultures. Persian, Turkic, Sanskrit, Tibetan, and many other languages rise gently through market squares and caravan courtyards, blending into a calm chorus where understanding grows through patience, gestures, shared experience, and mutual respect. For many travelers, words alone are only part of communication. A warm smile offered beside a shared meal, a respectful bow upon entering a home, or the careful exchange of gifts often speaks more clearly than perfect pronunciation. Experienced merchants understand that successful trade begins with trust, rather than negotiation. They learn local greetings, observe regional customs, and approach unfamiliar traditions with quiet curiosity instead of hurried judgment. Such habits create friendships that endure across many journeys. A caravan returning after several seasons is often welcomed not merely as a commercial opportunity, but as the return of familiar faces whose stories have become woven into the memory of the community itself. As you spend more time upon the Silk Road, you begin to notice that few people are admired more than the merchants whose lives have become inseparable from the road itself. Unlike modern traders who may remain in one city while goods travel independently, these merchants accompany their cargo across mountains, valleys, and deserts, building personal relationships wherever they go. Many have inherited their profession through generations of family experience. Their fathers and grandfathers walked these same roads, learning which villages offered excellent horses, which cities produced the finest textiles, and which caravanserais served particularly welcoming meals. Their knowledge cannot easily be written into books. It lives instead within memory, observation, and the countless conversations exchanged beneath market awnings and evening lanterns over many years. The Sogdian merchants, whose homeland lay in the fertile valleys around Samarkand and Bukhara, become especially well known throughout much of the Silk Road. Their reputation extends far beyond commerce alone. They possess remarkable curiosity about distant cultures and show genuine interest in the customs of those they meet. Skilled in languages and diplomacy, they often serve as intermediaries between civilizations separated by thousands of miles. Their homes reflect this unique position. Within a single household, one might find Chinese silk, Persian silverwork, Indian spices, Central Asian carpets, and Roman glass displayed side by side, each object quietly telling the story of another successful journey completed across the great network of roads. As your journey continues, you soon discover that merchants are only one part of the remarkable community traveling these ancient roads. Pilgrims form another peaceful stream of movement flowing across Asia. Buddhist monks, carrying carefully wrapped manuscripts, walk steadily between monasteries where sacred teachings are copied, studied, and preserved. Their possessions remain remarkably few: simple robes, wooden bowls, writing materials, and treasured texts protected against dust and rain. Their pace often differs little from that of the caravans, allowing merchants and pilgrims to share stretches of the road while exchanging stories about distant temples, mountain passes, and welcoming communities. Many monasteries situated beside important routes offer shelter to both groups alike, providing warm meals, clean water, and quiet places for rest without expecting wealth in return. These monasteries become much more than places of worship. They serve as centers of learning, hospitality, and cultural exchange. Travelers arriving after long days upon the road often find peaceful courtyards shaded by ancient trees, where monks carefully tend gardens filled with vegetables, herbs, and flowering plants. Libraries preserve handwritten scrolls copied with extraordinary patience, while workshops produce paintings, sculptures, and finely crafted objects inspired by both local traditions and distant artistic influences carried along the Silk Road. Conversations within these peaceful walls frequently extend beyond matters of faith, embracing astronomy, medicine, philosophy, geography, and practical knowledge useful to travelers crossing unfamiliar landscapes. Every visitor leaves carrying not only physical rest, but also fresh ideas gathered through calm and thoughtful exchange. As you pass from town to town, another group quietly earns your admiration: the skilled craftsmen whose work gives each community its unique character. Every town possesses skilled artisans whose work reflects both local resources and generations of inherited knowledge. Potters shape clay gathered from nearby riverbanks into elegant bowls and storage vessels whose simple forms combine beauty with usefulness. Blacksmiths transform iron into tools, horseshoes, cooking pots, and finely balanced knives capable of serving families for many years. Woodworkers carve doors, furniture, carts, and musical instruments from timber harvested in surrounding forests. Weavers create carpets whose intricate patterns preserve regional traditions, while occasionally incorporating new designs inspired by travelers from distant lands. The Silk Road quietly encourages such artistic conversations, allowing techniques developed in one civilization to inspire craftsmen living thousands of miles away. Textile workshops deserve particular admiration. In eastern cities, silk weavers continue traditions refined through centuries of remarkable craftsmanship. Looms stand within airy workshops where threads of astonishing fineness gradually become shimmering fabrics admired across continents. Farther west, wool, gathered from sheep grazing upon mountain pastures, is transformed into warm blankets, richly coloured rugs, and beautifully woven garments. Cotton becomes increasingly common in southern regions, influenced by the climates of India, while linen remains valued throughout many agricultural communities. Natural dyes extracted from plants, minerals, and insects produce deep blues, warm reds, gentle yellows, and rich greens, whose colours often reflect the surrounding landscape itself. Every finished textile represents not only skilled labour, but also an intimate understanding of nature's quiet gifts. Hospitality remains one of the Silk Road's most enduring traditions. In villages scattered across the route, travellers are frequently welcomed with simple generosity that asks little in return. Fresh bread, still warm from clay ovens, appears beside bowls of soup prepared from local vegetables and grains. Tea is poured carefully into small cups, encouraging conversation to unfold without haste. During harvest seasons, orchards offer ripe fruit whose sweetness reflects months of patient cultivation. Even modest households often share what they can, recognizing that today's guest may tomorrow become the host, welcoming another traveler somewhere farther along the road. Such customs strengthen the invisible bonds connecting communities separated by great distances. Architecture, too, changes gradually as the caravan continues westward, each region expressing its environment through the buildings people create. In forested lands, timber frames support steep roofs designed to shed rain and snow efficiently. River valleys rich in clay produce elegant brick houses whose thick walls remain cool during warm afternoons. Mountain villages employ carefully fitted stone gathered from nearby slopes, while desert settlements rely upon sun-dried mud brick, whose remarkable insulating qualities protect against both daytime heat and cool desert nights. Courtyards become increasingly common in warmer climates, providing shaded spaces where families gather around fountains, gardens, or fruit trees sheltered from the wider street. Rather than imposing one architectural style upon every landscape, the Silk Road reveals humanity's remarkable ability to build in quiet harmony with local conditions. Markets provide perhaps the most vivid meeting places along the route. Their atmosphere remains lively without ever feeling hurried. Stalls shaded by woven awnings display baskets overflowing with fresh produce. Carefully arranged textiles, polished metalwork, fragrant spices, carved wooden objects, ceramics, leather goods, and countless everyday necessities. Bakers remove warm loaves from clay ovens, while nearby cooks prepare steaming bowls of noodles, rice, or hearty stews, flavoured with herbs grown just beyond the town. Storytellers occasionally gather small audiences beneath broad trees. Musicians perform gentle melodies upon flutes or stringed instruments, and children weave cheerfully between shoppers carrying baskets filled with the day's purchases. The caravan pauses within these markets not only to trade, but also to become part of the peaceful life unfolding around them. Perhaps the greatest lesson offered by the people of the Silk Road is the quiet understanding that difference need not create distance. Across thousands of miles, travellers encounter countless customs regarding clothing, language, food, architecture, worship, and daily routine. Yet, beneath these beautiful variations remain familiar human rhythms shared by every community. Parents teach children the skills they will one day need. Farmers tend fields according to the changing seasons. Craftsmen refine their work through patience and repetition. Elders preserve stories gathered over long lives, while young people imagine journeys still waiting beyond familiar horizons. Every village, a monastery, market, and city contributes its own unique voice to the great conversation carried peacefully across continents. As evening settles once more, the caravan reaches another welcoming settlement, where lanterns begin to glow softly beneath the fading sky. The scent of fresh bread drifts from nearby ovens, mingling with the fragrance of wood smoke and flowering vines climbing shaded courtyard walls. Travellers greet familiar hosts whose families have welcomed caravans for generations, while newcomers receive the same warm kindness, extended to all who arrive with respectful hearts. As meals are shared and stories exchanged beneath the quiet light of the evening, it becomes clear that the Silk Road has always carried something even more valuable than silk, spices, or precious stones. It has carried people, each with their own memories, traditions, hopes, and wisdom, gently connecting distant worlds through simple acts of travel, conversation, and hospitality. Morning arrives beneath a sky of remarkable clarity. The air feels crisp and wonderfully still, carrying only the quiet fragrance of dry grasses warmed by the first gentle rays of sunlight. Beyond the welcoming settlement where the caravan rested, the road stretches onward into broader and more open country. The travellers know that the landscapes ahead will gradually become more demanding, not because they are unfriendly, but because nature itself asks for patience, careful planning, and quiet respect. Throughout the long history of the Silk Road, every merchant, pilgrim, messenger, and explorer has learned that the greatest companion on the journey is not speed or strength alone, but the willingness to move in harmony with the land. As you continue westward, the landscapes around you begin to change more noticeably than ever before. Fertile river valleys gradually gave way to broad grasslands, forests slowly opened into deserts, and distant mountains rose patiently above the horizon. None of these places sought to prevent travellers from passing through them. Instead, each landscape simply possessed its own character, shaped over countless centuries by wind, water, sunlight, and changing seasons. Those who understood these natural rhythms found that even the longest journeys became remarkably manageable. Those who hurried often discovered that the road quietly rewarded steady persistence rather than ambition. Over generations, the accumulated wisdom of experienced caravan leaders transformed these natural challenges into familiar companions along the route. Your first great lesson from the land comes as the deserts begin to unfold before you. To someone seeing them for the first time, the immense stretches of sand and gravel might appear empty. Yet seasoned travelers understood that deserts possess their own quiet order. Before entering these vast landscapes, caravans prepared carefully. Waterskins were examined one final time, ensuring that every seam remained secure. Food was packed where it could be reached easily during brief midday rests. Camels, perfectly adapted to these conditions, received generous opportunities to drink whenever reliable wells or streams were available. The journey into the desert never began suddenly. It unfolded gradually, allowing both people and animals to adjust naturally as the air became drier and vegetation more sparse. The desert itself often revealed extraordinary beauty during the earliest hours of the day. Sunrise painted the sand with soft shades of gold, rose, and pale amber that changed gently with every passing minute. Long shadows stretched gracefully across the dunes, emphasizing their elegant curves rather than their immense size. Cool air lingered near the ground before the warmth of the sun gradually settled across the landscape. During these peaceful mornings, the caravan moved steadily forward while the temperature remained comfortable, leaving behind a trail of footprints that the gentle breeze would slowly soften before evening arrived. Every traveler came to appreciate these quiet hours, when the desert seemed less like an obstacle and more like a vast, silent sea, inviting thoughtful passage. As midday approached, the character of the landscape changed almost imperceptibly. The warmth grew stronger, encouraging the caravan to pause beneath whatever shade nature provided. A solitary outcrop of rock, a cluster of hardy shrubs, or a small grove surrounding an oasis became welcome places of rest. Experienced caravan leaders rarely attempted to continue through the hottest part of the afternoon unless conditions truly required it. Instead, woven mats were spread upon the ground, simple meals prepared, and animals allowed to rest peacefully. Travelers drank water slowly and carefully, understanding that wise use of every resource allowed the journey to continue comfortably for many days ahead. The desert encouraged moderation in all things, teaching valuable lessons through gentle repetition rather than hardship alone. Water became the most treasured companion throughout these landscapes, every well held significance far beyond its modest appearance. Some had served travelers continuously for centuries, maintained by nearby communities who understood their importance to everyone crossing the region. Others emerged naturally as springs, where underground water reached the surface, creating small oases, rich with palms, grasses, and flowering plants. Arriving at one of these places after several days upon the open desert brought quiet satisfaction rather than dramatic relief. Animals drank deeply while travelers refilled their containers with patient care. Nearby gardens often flourished around these precious water sources, producing dates, figs, melons, and vegetables that added welcome freshness to meals prepared along the journey. These green islands reminded every traveler that even the driest landscapes possessed remarkable generosity when approached with understanding. The journey continues quietly. Wind formed another gentle teacher along the Silk Road. Across open plains, it carried welcome coolness during warm afternoons, rippling through tall grasses like waves moving across a peaceful sea. In the deserts, the same wind gradually reshaped dunes, creating flowing patterns that changed almost unnoticed over weeks and months. Occasionally, stronger gusts lifted fine sand into the air, softening distant views beneath a delicate golden haze. When such conditions appeared, travelers simply adjusted their pace. Camels instinctively turned their heads slightly away from the drifting sand, while merchants wrapped light cloth around their faces to protect their eyes and mouths. Rather than struggling against the wind, they accepted its temporary presence, continuing only when visibility remained comfortable. Patience always proved more valuable than haste. Mountains presented a different kind of quiet challenge. From the broad plains below, their snow-covered peaks appeared distant and almost unreachable. Yet the road discovered natural pathways through their valleys and passes with remarkable wisdom. Climbing began gradually. Gentle slopes replaced level ground, streams became swifter as they descended from higher elevations, and the air acquired a refreshing coolness even during summer. Travelers naturally shortened their daily distances while ascending, allowing both people and animals to conserve energy. The journey became slower, though never burdensome. Every bend in the path revealed another peaceful view of forests, waterfalls, alpine meadows, or distant ridges, glowing softly beneath changing light. The mountain passes themselves inspired quiet admiration. High above the valleys, travelers looked across immense landscapes stretching toward horizons, where several worlds seemed to meet. Snow lingered upon shaded slopes long after spring had arrived below, feeding countless streams whose waters eventually nourished farms and cities many weeks away. Hardy flowers bloomed among rocky meadows during the brief alpine summer, attracting butterflies and bees whose gentle presence softened even these lofty places. Shepherds guided flocks of sheep and goats across fresh pasture, while mountain birds circled silently upon rising currents of air. The road here demanded careful footing rather than courage. Every step simply required thoughtful attention, rewarded by extraordinary views unfolding with each gradual ascent. Every step has its own rhythm. Crossing rivers offered another familiar rhythm within the journey. Many streams could be forded easily, where shallow water flowed gently across smooth stones. Larger rivers often possessed carefully maintained ferries or sturdy wooden bridges constructed by local communities whose livelihoods depended upon safe passage for both travelers and trade. When ferries were used, cargo was transferred methodically while animals waited patiently upon the shore before making their own crossings. The entire process unfolded without hurry. Riverbanks provided natural resting places where meals could be prepared, clothing washed, and water containers replenished before continuing onward. Every crossing reminded travelers of the countless rivers quietly connecting mountains, forests, grasslands, and distant seas into one continuous landscape. Waiting your turn at the ferry feels surprisingly familiar, much like patiently waiting at a quiet railway crossing today, where everyone understands that a few peaceful moments of patience keep the journey comfortable for all. The changing seasons shaped every successful journey more profoundly than any map. Spring filled valleys with flowing streams, fresh pasture, and blossoming orchards whose fragrance drifted gently across the road. Summer encouraged early departures before the warmth of midday settled upon the land. Autumn offered abundant harvests, welcoming markets filled with grain, fruit, nuts, and preserved foods prepared for the colder months ahead. Winter required greater care, particularly in higher elevations, where snowfall sometimes closed mountain passes until warmer weather returned. Experienced merchants rarely viewed these seasonal changes as inconveniences. Instead, they planned their departures accordingly, allowing nature's own calendar to determine the most comfortable routes and travel schedules. There is no reason to rush. Distance itself became one of the Silk Road's quietest challenges. A journey from eastern China to the Mediterranean could require many months, even years, when trade, weather, and extended stays in distant cities were included. Yet few travelers considered the entire distance at once. Instead, they measured progress through familiar stages. The next village, the next river crossing, the next mountain pass, the next welcoming caravanserai. These became the natural milestones guiding daily life upon the road. Such an approach transformed an immense expedition into a series of peaceful, manageable days, each complete within itself, while gently contributing to the greater journey. Fatigue, too, was understood with calm practicality. Long days of walking naturally invited evening rest. Muscles strengthened gradually through regular movement, while animals accustomed to caravan life settled comfortably into their dependable routines. Travelers cared for one another through simple acts of kindness, sharing heavier tasks when someone grew tired, offering warm tea after a cool mountain morning, or adjusting the pace to ensure that every member of the caravan remained comfortable. The road fostered cooperation because everyone understood that the journey succeeded best when experienced together. Quiet encouragement replaced competition, creating an atmosphere where patience became the caravan's greatest strength. Perhaps the greatest challenge was not found in any desert, mountain, or river, but in maintaining the steady spirit required for such long journeys. Weeks of similar landscapes, familiar routines, and gradual progress demanded a peaceful frame of mind. Here, the Silk Road offered its own gentle reward. Every sunrise revealed new colors upon the horizon. Every village welcomed different faces and fresh conversations. Every season brought subtle changes to fields, forests, and rivers already becoming familiar companions. Travelers learned to appreciate these quiet variations, discovering that the beauty of the journey lay not in constant novelty, but in the slow unfolding of a world far larger and more richly connected than any single destination could ever reveal. As evening descends once more, the caravan establishes camp beside a broad river whose calm waters reflect the first evening stars. Nearby mountains fade gently into soft blue silhouettes, while the final light lingers upon their highest peaks. Cooking fires glow warmly beneath the growing darkness, and the familiar sounds of shared meals, quiet conversation, and peacefully resting animals once again fill the air. Looking back across the landscapes already crossed, fertile valleys, whispering forests, open grasslands, patient deserts, and snow-fed mountains, it becomes clear that the Silk Road's challenges have never existed to discourage travelers. Instead, they have quietly taught generations the enduring value of patience, preparation, cooperation, and respect for the remarkable world through which these ancient roads gently wander. This morning, it isn't the light that reaches you first. It's the quiet sound of the camp slowly returning to life. Somewhere nearby, a wooden bucket touches the ground with a soft knock. A camel shifts its weight before letting out a slow breath. Cloth rustles as someone folds a blanket, while another traveller quietly stirs yesterday's embers back into a small cooking fire. Before you even open your eyes completely, you already know another peaceful day upon the Silk Road has begun. As the caravan approaches the city, the atmosphere begins to change almost imperceptibly. The quiet sounds of the countryside give way to the gentle murmur of daily life. Carts loaded with grain roll steadily toward the gates. Farmers carry woven baskets filled with vegetables gathered only hours before sunrise. Potters transport carefully stacked vessels cushioned with straw, while shepherds guide small flocks through the outskirts before continuing toward livestock markets. Children help their parents arrange fresh fruit beneath shaded awnings, and shopkeepers sweep the stone pathways outside their workshops before opening wooden shutters to welcome customers. Nothing feels hurried, despite the growing activity. Every movement seems guided by habits refined over generations, allowing the marketplace to awaken with calm confidence rather than noisy excitement. The city itself has grown prosperous because of its position along the Silk Road. Wide streets connect the main gates to central market squares, where merchants from distant lands gather beneath rows of covered stalls. Warehouses built from sturdy brick or stone line the surrounding streets, their thick walls protecting valuable goods from changing weather. Caravanserais stand nearby, offering spacious courtyards where camels kneel beneath their loads, while travellers rest after many weeks upon the road. Wells and fountains provide cool water to both visitors and residents, while shaded gardens offer peaceful places where conversations continue beneath the shelter of fruit trees and climbing vines. Every part of the city has quietly adapted to welcome the steady rhythm of long-distance trade. Standing beside one of the wells, Farid quietly points toward the caravanserai, before explaining that many merchants remember a city not by its walls or markets, but by the kindness shown to tired travellers at the end of a long day's journey. It is a simple observation, yet after weeks upon the road, you understand exactly what he means. As the caravan enters the marketplace, the remarkable diversity of goods immediately becomes apparent. Long tables display shimmering bolts of silk, whose delicate threads catch the morning sunlight with gentle elegance. Nearby, baskets overflow with fragrant spices carefully measured into small cloth bags. Cinnamon, cloves, black pepper, cardamom, and saffron fill the air with subtle aromas carried softly by the breeze. Fine porcelain bowls rest beside polished bronze mirrors, carved jade ornaments, lacquered boxes, embroidered garments, leather saddles, woven carpets, and carefully crafted wooden chests. Each object has travelled its own remarkable journey before arriving here, carrying within it the traditions, skills, and landscapes of distant communities. The scene feels surprisingly familiar. Although separated from the modern world by many centuries, the gentle movement of people between stalls carries the same quiet curiosity that can still be found in welcoming marketplaces today, where conversation matters just as much as the goods themselves. The marketplace seems content to move at its own unhurried pace. Silk naturally remains among the marketplace's most admired treasures. Visitors approach the merchant's stalls with quiet appreciation, allowing the smooth fabric to flow gently through their hands, before examining its intricate patterns beneath changing light. Some bolts are woven in simple, elegant colors suitable for everyday garments among prosperous households. Others display elaborate designs inspired by flowers, birds, flowing water, or mythical creatures carefully embroidered by highly skilled artisans. Every piece represents months of patient work, beginning with the cultivation of mulberry trees and the careful tending of silkworms before reaching the loom, where experienced weavers transform delicate fibers into extraordinary cloth. Buyers understand that they are acquiring far more than fabric alone. They are purchasing generations of accumulated craftsmanship, preserved within every shimmering thread. Every thread tells a patient story. As you continue through the marketplace, tea quietly reveals itself as another treasured companion of the Silk Road. Compressed cakes of carefully prepared leaves travel securely packed for the long journey westward, protected from moisture by woven baskets and cloth coverings. In the eastern provinces, tea has long become part of daily life, enjoyed during peaceful conversations, family gatherings, and moments of quiet reflection. As it gradually reaches new regions along the Silk Road, more communities discover its comforting warmth and delicate flavor. Merchants often prepare fresh tea for visitors, considering their goods, understanding that a shared cup encourages relaxed conversation and lasting friendships far more effectively than hurried negotiation. The simple act of pouring tea becomes another gentle bridge connecting people from distant cultures. Farid accepts a warm cup with both hands before offering one to you. No bargain is discussed for several peaceful moments. Here, hospitality comes first. Trade follows naturally afterward. The spices displayed throughout the market have followed equally remarkable journeys. Many originate in the warm climates of India and Southeast Asia, where tropical forests and fertile valleys provide ideal conditions for their cultivation. Pepper vines climb tall supports beneath broad leaves, while cinnamon is carefully harvested from the inner bark of selected trees. Cardamom grows in shaded woodland clearings, and cloves arrive from islands lying far beyond the eastern seas. These precious seasonings travel across oceans, rivers, mountains, and deserts before reaching marketplaces like this one, where even small quantities are treasured for their ability to transform ordinary meals into richly flavored experiences. Beyond their culinary value, many spices are also appreciated for their medicinal qualities, preserved through generations of practical knowledge shared among physicians and herbalists. As you wander farther through the market, another remarkable treasure quietly appears before you, not made of gold or silk, but of paper, whose influence will eventually travel farther than almost any caravan. Invented and refined in China centuries earlier, it gradually begins its patient journey westward through merchants, scholars, monks, and diplomats who recognize its remarkable usefulness. Compared with bamboo slips, silk, or parchment, paper offers lighter and more practical surface for writing, copying books, recording trade accounts, and preserving knowledge. Workshops devoted to papermaking eventually appear in Central Asia and later throughout the Islamic world, where local craftsmen adapt and improve the techniques they have learned. The exchange occurs gradually, without dramatic announcements or sudden transformation. Like so many innovations along the Silk Road, paper quietly changes civilizations simply by proving itself useful in everyday life. Like so many quiet inventions throughout history, its greatest influence would only become fully understood generations later. A little farther along, your attention is naturally drawn toward beautifully crafted glassware, unlike anything you've seen since leaving Xi'an. Delicate vessels shaped from brilliantly clear or softly colored glass catch the sunlight in ways unlike pottery or metal. Some are decorated with intricate patterns created while the molten glass remains warm and flexible beneath the artisan's careful hands. Others display elegant simplicity, allowing the remarkable transparency of the material itself to become their greatest beauty. For many visitors encountering such craftsmanship for the first time, these objects seem almost magical, though they are in truth the result of centuries of patient experimentation perfected within workshops, stretching from the Eastern Mediterranean through Persia and beyond. Each glass vessel reminds the marketplace that excellence in craftsmanship flourishes wherever skilled hands are given time to master their art. Trade along the Silk Road extends far beyond beautiful objects alone. Horses occupy an especially valued place within many markets, particularly those supplied by the broad grasslands of Central Asia. Strong, healthy animals capable of carrying riders or pulling wagons over long distances command great respect. Breeders take pride as their careful knowledge of bloodlines, temperament, endurance, and health, understanding that an excellent horse represents years of attentive care rather than simple good fortune. In return, nomadic communities often acquire grain, tea, silk, metal tools, and other goods less readily available upon the open steppe. These exchanges strengthen relationships that have connected farming civilizations and pastoral cultures for centuries. The marketplace is never truly about possessions alone. It is about trust, carefully earned over many journeys. The market also serves as a place where knowledge travels almost as freely as merchandise. Merchants arriving from distant cities naturally share news gathered throughout their journeys. They describe changing harvests, weather patterns, newly repaired bridges, mountain passes now free of snow, and caravan routes offering particularly comfortable travel during the current season. Scholars exchange manuscripts copied in distant monasteries. Physicians compare herbal remedies gathered from different landscapes, discovering useful plants unfamiliar beyond their own regions. Astronomers discuss observations of the stars, while craftsmen examine one another's techniques with genuine curiosity. Every conversation adds another quiet thread to the great network of understanding woven across Asia over many centuries. Religious ideas likewise continue their peaceful journeys through these same gathering places. Buddhist monks carrying sacred texts meet merchants who later introduce those teachings to communities farther west. Nestorian Christian travelers establish churches within trading cities, where diverse populations already live side by side. Zoroastrian fire temples welcome followers whose ancestors have crossed Persia for generations, while Hindu pilgrims, Jewish communities, and later Muslim scholars each contribute their own traditions to the rich spiritual landscape of the Silk Road. Rather than replacing one another immediately, these beliefs often exist together within the same cities, encouraging respectful conversations that continue quietly across generations. Markets become places where spiritual ideas, like trade goods, are exchanged thoughtfully and without haste. Coins from many kingdoms pass through the careful hands of experienced merchants. Chinese bronze coins with square holes rest beside Persian silver drachms, Roman gold solidae, Indian currencies, and locally minted pieces reflecting the authority of regional rulers. Yet, commerce does not always depend entirely upon money. Barter remains common, especially between communities that value different resources. A finely woven carpet may be exchanged for a quantity of tea, while carefully crafted metal tools secure several healthy horses or sacks of grain. Trust, reputation, and long-established relationships often matter as much as precise calculations. Successful merchants understand that fairness today encourages lasting partnerships tomorrow, ensuring that both sides welcome future exchanges with confidence. As you quietly observe the marketplace, it becomes difficult to separate commerce from ordinary life. Every greeting, every shared meal, every careful question, and every patient exchange feels like another small thread woven into the vast fabric of the Silk Road. Around you, Farid simply watches with quiet satisfaction. There is nothing left for him to explain. The road itself has already become your greatest teacher. By the time evening begins to settle across the city, many transactions have been completed. Yet the greatest achievement of the day cannot easily be measured in coins, silk, or spices. The Silk Road has once again fulfilled its deeper purpose. It has allowed distant civilizations to meet peacefully through everyday exchanges built upon curiosity, hospitality, and mutual benefit. Every bundle unloaded, every conversation shared, every new friendship formed, and every idea quietly carried onward becomes part of a remarkable network that stretches across continents. Long after individual goods have been sold or consumed, these human connections continue their gentle journey, shaping history with the same quiet persistence as the ancient road itself. The morning feels both familiar and quietly different. After so many peaceful weeks upon the road, you no longer measure the journey by the number of miles behind you, but by the quiet moments you have gathered along the way. As you adjust your cloak against the cool morning air, you notice more travelers joining the road from nearby villages. Farmers guide their carts toward the city. Messengers ride with calm purpose, and merchants quietly merge into the growing procession. Beside you, Farid looks toward the horizon before speaking, almost to himself. A city announces itself long before its walls appear. Looking around, you begin to understand exactly what he means. The road widens as it approaches the fertile plain surrounding the destination. Irrigation canals branch gracefully through fields of grain, whose golden heads sway gently beneath the breeze. Orchards stretch across the countryside in carefully ordered rows, heavy with peaches, apricots, pears, figs, or pomegranates, depending upon the region and season. Vineyards climb sunny hillsides, while vegetable gardens flourish beside clear streams, fed by distant mountains. Every sign speaks of careful cultivation maintained over generations. Long before the city's walls become visible, the surrounding countryside reveals the prosperity that has grown from centuries of trade, agriculture, and patient cooperation between people and the landscape that sustains them. The first glimpse of the city appears softly upon the horizon. Above the morning mist rise towers, rooftops, and protective walls, whose outlines gradually become clearer with every measured step of the caravan. There is no sudden revelation. Instead, the city slowly emerges from the distance, much as it must have appeared to travelers throughout history. Sunlight reflects from tiled roofs and polished domes, while banners stir gently above gateways. Beyond the walls, taller buildings hint at marketplaces, temples, palaces, workshops, and homes where thousands of ordinary lives unfold each day. For those who have spent many weeks surrounded by open landscapes, the sight carries quiet satisfaction rather than excitement. The destination has arrived naturally, exactly as the steady rhythm of the journey always promised it would. You have imagined this moment many times during the long weeks upon the road, yet its quiet arrival feels even more satisfying than expectation ever allowed. As the caravan draws nearer, the road becomes lined with signs of the city's influence. Potteries fire fresh clay vessels whose warm, earthy scent drifts across the fields. Brickmakers shape neat rows of sun-dried bricks awaiting construction projects within expanding neighborhoods. Watermills turn steadily beside flowing canals, grinding grain harvested from nearby farms. Herds of sheep and goats graze peacefully beneath the watchful eyes of shepherds preparing to sell wool, milk, and livestock within the city markets. Travellers encounter craftsmen carrying tools over their shoulders, scholars walking towards schools or libraries, and monks journeying to temples or monasteries. The countryside and the city exist not as separate worlds, but as partners whose lives support one another through countless daily exchanges. Soon, the great walls stand clearly before the travellers. Built from stone, brick, or carefully compacted earth according to local traditions, they rise with quiet confidence rather than intimidation. Their purpose has always been practical, protecting the thriving communities gathered within while providing clearly defined entrances through which commerce, visitors, and ideas may flow. Watchtowers overlook the surrounding roads, allowing guards to observe approaching caravans long before they reach the gates. Ivy climbs portions of the ancient masonry, while swallows circle gracefully above the battlements, nesting within sheltered crevices that have overlooked generations of arriving travellers. The walls themselves seem almost alive with memory, having witnessed centuries of peaceful arrivals, much like this one. The city gate welcomes the caravan with calm efficiency. Guards greet the caravan leader respectfully, recording the arrival of merchants and their cargo according to long-established customs. Written documents are examined where necessary, while experienced officials ask practical questions regarding the origin of goods, the number of animals, and the intended length of the merchant's stay. Nearby scribes carefully copy information into orderly records that help the city's administration manage the steady flow of commerce. The entire process unfolds without haste. Everyone involved understands their role, and generations of experience have refined these routines into quiet acts of cooperation that allow thousands of travelers to enter safely throughout the year. As you pass beneath the great gateway, you cannot help but slow your pace for a moment. Behind you lies the long road that gradually became your temporary home. Ahead waits another chapter filled with unfamiliar streets, welcoming courtyards, quiet conversations, and discoveries yet to unfold. Beside you, Farid removes his hand from the lead rope of his camel and quietly smiles. He has crossed this gateway many times before, yet he still pauses as though offering silent thanks for another safe journey completed. Without realizing it, you do the same. The streets within the city possess a rhythm distinct from that of the countryside, yet equally harmonious. Wide avenues accommodate carts, horses, pedestrians, and pack animals moving with patient order rather than hurried congestion. Smaller lanes branch toward residential neighborhoods, where flowering vines climb courtyard walls and children play beneath the shade of fruit trees. Water channels flow beside certain streets, providing both practical irrigation and gentle cooling during warmer months. Public wells gather neighbors, exchanging friendly greetings while filling clay jars with fresh water. Everywhere the city reveals careful planning shaped over many generations, balancing commerce, daily life, and beauty within the same welcoming spaces. The caravan soon reaches the caravanserais, where many long-distance merchants traditionally stay. From the outside, the building resembles a sturdy fortress, its thick walls protecting both visitors and valuable cargo. Once inside, however, the atmosphere becomes remarkably peaceful. A spacious central courtyard offers shade beneath broad trees, while a deep well supplies cool water for travelers and animals alike. Camels kneel patiently as their loads are removed, clearly relieved to rest after the final stage of the journey. Horses are brushed, watered, and fed generous portions of fresh grain. Stable hands inspect harnesses and saddles with experienced care, preparing them for future travels while allowing the animals several days of well-earned rest. Around the courtyard, simple but comfortable rooms welcome weary merchants whose footsteps have carried them across continents. There is no need for celebration. Safe arrival is reward enough. Unloading the cargo becomes a careful ceremony of its own. Every bundle secured so thoughtfully at the beginning of the journey is untied with equal attention. Silk is examined for signs of moisture or damage, though the experienced packing has preserved its remarkable beauty throughout the long expedition. Porcelain vessels are removed one by one from their protective baskets, their delicate surfaces still shining softly beneath the afternoon light. Chests containing spices fill the air with warm fragrances as they are opened for inspection, while carefully wrapped jade carvings, lacquerware, tea, paper, and countless other goods are arranged neatly within secure storage rooms, awaiting the coming days of trade. Months of patient preparation and steady travel now quietly reveal their purpose. The marketplaces surrounding the caravanserai soon become familiar. Returning merchants are warmly greeted by old trading partners whose friendships have been maintained across many years and many journeys. Conversations begin not with negotiations, but with inquiries about families, weather encountered along the road, familiar villages visited, and mutual friends met during the journey. Tea is served generously, while stories are exchanged, before business gradually enters the discussion. Trust built through repeated encounters often proves more valuable than written contracts, allowing commerce to proceed with remarkable confidence and mutual respect. These relationships, carefully nurtured over decades, become one of the Silk Road's greatest treasures. Watching old friends greet one another after many months apart feels surprisingly familiar, much like seeing neighbors reunite after a long season away from home. Time changes many things, but genuine friendship always seems to recognize its own path back. As the days unfold, the travelers find time to explore the city beyond its commercial districts. Temples, mosques, churches, monasteries, or shrines, depending upon the region and historical period, offer quiet spaces where residents and visitors alike seek moments of reflection. Public gardens provide welcome shade beside flowing fountains, whose gentle sound softens the busy streets beyond their walls. Libraries preserve handwritten manuscripts collected from distant lands, while schools echo with thoughtful discussions between teachers and students eager to understand the wider world. Workshops reveal skilled artisans shaping metal, wood, glass, textiles and ceramics into objects admired far beyond the city itself. Every neighborhood possesses its own character, contributing another layer to the rich cultural life sustained by generations of peaceful exchange. The city also reveals how deeply the Silk Road has shaped everyday life. A meal enjoyed within a modest household may include spices that crossed mountains from India, tea cultivated in eastern China, bread baked from grain grown in nearby fields, fruit introduced centuries earlier from distant valleys, and glass vessels crafted by artisans hundreds of miles away. Clothing combines local fabrics with imported silks or embroidered patterns inspired by neighboring cultures. Music performed in shaded courtyards echoes melodies gathered through countless exchanges between traveling musicians and settled communities. Even ordinary conversations occasionally include words borrowed from distant languages, gradually becoming part of everyday speech. The Silk Road has quietly woven itself into the fabric of daily existence, so naturally that many residents scarcely notice its presence. For you, arrival never feels like an ending. It feels like a peaceful pause before another road quietly calls. Goods will be traded, new cargo carefully selected, friendships renewed, accounts balanced, and fresh information gathered regarding distant roads, changing markets, and favorable seasons for future travel. After a period of rest, another caravan will eventually form, and familiar preparations will quietly begin once more. The road has never truly ended at the city gates. It simply pauses here for a little while before continuing onward toward another horizon, another community, and another chapter in the timeless story of connection across the continents. As evening settles over the rooftops, lanterns begin to glow along the streets, while the last golden light lingers upon the city walls. From the courtyard of the caravanserais, the sounds of the marketplace soften into distant conversation, gentle footsteps, and the quiet music of everyday life. The animals rest peacefully after their long journey. The cargo stands safely stored, and the travelers share warm meals beneath the open sky, grateful not only for having reached their destination, but for every calm mile that carried them here. The city welcomes them not as strangers arriving from a distant world, but as familiar participants in a journey that has gently connected civilizations for centuries. The journey has gradually reached a place where the road itself begins to feel less like a path across the land and more like a memory carried gently within the heart. The great city now rests peacefully behind us, its markets continuing their quiet conversations, its workshops filling the streets with the steady sounds of patient craftsmanship, and its caravanserais welcoming new travelers who have only recently begun the same journey we have just completed. Somewhere beyond its gates, another caravan is already preparing its bundles of silk, tea, spices, paper, glass, and woven cloth. Animals are being brushed in shaded courtyards, ledgers carefully rolled and tied, waterskins examined one final time, and familiar roads considered once again. The Silk Road never truly sleeps. It simply continues, season after season, generation after generation, with the calm certainty of a river following its ancient course toward the sea. Farid's work is already beginning again somewhere behind you, quietly preparing another caravan for another season. You realize that while your journey may be ending, the road itself never truly stops welcoming new travelers. Looking back across the many landscapes we have crossed, it becomes clear that no single place can define the Silk Road. It was never only the fertile river valleys where orchards blossomed each spring, nor only the immense deserts whose golden sands reflected the quiet colours of dawn and dusk. It was not solely the forests where birds greeted the morning from beneath tall pines, nor the broad grasslands where the wind moved through endless waves of wild flowers. It was not only the snow-fed mountains whose streams nourished distant civilizations, or the bustling cities where merchants gathered beneath shaded market awnings. The Silk Road was all of these places together, gently connected through patient travel, thoughtful preparation, and the willingness of countless ordinary people to meet one another with curiosity and respect. Throughout history, people have often remembered the Silk Road through the remarkable objects that travelled along its many routes. Shimmering silk became its most famous symbol, admired by emperors, nobles, merchants, and families far beyond the lands where it was woven. Yet, as we walked beside the caravans, it became quietly apparent that silk itself was only one traveller among many. Tea crossed mountains with equal patience, bringing moments of calm reflection to distant households. Paper carried knowledge from one civilization to another, allowing ideas to be copied, preserved, and shared across generations. Spices transformed simple meals into fragrant celebrations of distant climates, while glass, ceramics, carpets, medicines, musical instruments, and carefully crafted tools each contributed their own gentle stories to the journey. Every object carried something beyond its practical value. It carried the memory of the hands that had created it, and the landscapes through which it had travelled. Perhaps even more remarkable than the movement of goods was the quiet journey of ideas. A merchant stopping to rest beneath the shade of a caravanserai might share practical knowledge gathered hundreds of miles away. A monk carrying carefully copied manuscripts could introduce new philosophies to communities previously unfamiliar with them. Physicians exchanged remedies discovered in mountain valleys, desert oases, and tropical forests, gradually enriching medical understanding across vast distances. Astronomers compared observations of the stars beneath skies shared by every traveller, regardless of language or homeland. Craftsmen watched one another work with genuine admiration, adapting unfamiliar techniques into local traditions until entirely new styles of art quietly emerged. None of these exchanges required conquest or urgency. They unfolded through conversations, friendships, shared meals, and repeated visits over many peaceful years. Ideas often travel more quietly than caravans, yet they usually arrive much farther. Religions also found gentle pathways along the road. Buddhism spread westward through monks whose patient footsteps carried sacred teachings across mountains and deserts. Christianity established communities within important trading cities, while Zoroastrian, Hindu, Jewish, and later Islamic traditions added their own voices to the remarkable spiritual diversity of the Silk Road. Temples, monasteries, churches, mosques, and shrines often stood within the same thriving centers of trade, welcoming those who sought wisdom, prayer, or quiet reflection. Although history occasionally brought periods of conflict, the enduring story of the Silk Road remained one of long centuries, during which people of many beliefs learned to live, trade, and travel beside one another with remarkable mutual respect. As you quietly reflect upon everyone who once walked these roads before you, it becomes clear that history is rarely shaped only by kings or famous generals. The Silk Road reminds us that ordinary people quietly influence the course of civilization every single day. Farmers cultivating grain beside peaceful rivers provided food that sustained distant caravans. Shepherds guided healthy flocks across mountain pastures, supplying wool for garments carried across continents. Potters, blacksmiths, carpenters, weavers, and papermakers devoted patient years to mastering crafts whose products found homes thousands of miles away. Caravan leaders memorized routes through changing landscapes, while innkeepers welcomed strangers with warm meals and safe shelter. Scribes carefully copied ledgers, letters, and books whose contents preserved knowledge for future generations. Every quiet act of work became part of something much larger than any individual could easily see. Nature itself remained an equal partner throughout this remarkable history. Rivers quietly determined where cities would flourish. Mountains shaped the direction of roads, while feeding streams that nourished fertile valleys below. Grasslands supported the horses and camels, whose strength made long-distance trade possible. Forests supplied timber for wagons, bridges, homes, and workshops. Deserts taught patience and preparation, encouraging travelers to move thoughtfully between life-giving oases. The changing seasons influenced every departure, every harvest, every market, and every successful crossing. Rather than attempting to dominate these landscapes, generations of travelers gradually learned to cooperate with them, discovering that harmony with the natural world often provided the safest and most rewarding path forward. It's easy to imagine that the Silk Road belonged entirely to the distant past, yet many of its lessons continue to resonate quietly today. Modern transportation has greatly shortened journeys that once required many months, while communication now crosses oceans in moments rather than seasons. Even so, the deeper purpose of the Silk Road remains wonderfully familiar. Human beings continue to share ideas, art, science, stories, food, music, and craftsmanship across cultures. Curiosity still encourages friendships between people who speak different languages. Hospitality continues to transform strangers into welcomed guests. Knowledge still grows richest when it travels freely between communities willing to learn from one another. Though the roads themselves have changed, the gentle spirit of connection endures. As evening begins to settle over our final resting place, the familiar rhythm of the journey gradually slows. The caravan has completed its work for the day. Camels kneel peacefully beneath broad trees, while horses graze upon fresh grass beside a quiet stream. Cooking fires glow softly, their warm light dancing across simple bowls, woven blankets, and carefully packed bundles awaiting future travels. The fragrance of tea rises gently into the cool evening air, joined by the comforting aroma of fresh bread and herbs gathered nearby. Conversations become quieter now, filled less with plans for tomorrow, and more with quiet gratitude for the many landscapes crossed, the many friendships formed, and the countless moments of simple beauty discovered along the road. Above the camp, the night sky unfolds with the same timeless elegance that has accompanied every traveller throughout history. The first stars appear one by one, followed gradually by countless others, until the heavens once again shimmer with extraordinary clarity. Somewhere beneath these same stars, another caravan is making camp beside a distant oasis. Far beyond the mountains, a monk quietly copies sacred texts by lantern light. In a bustling city marketplace, merchants carefully secure their stalls before returning home through peaceful streets. A shepherd watches over resting sheep upon the open steppe, while fishermen tend gentle rivers flowing steadily toward the sea. Across the vast network of lands once connected by the Silk Road, ordinary life continues with calm persistence, just as it has for centuries. The sounds of the evening grow softer still. The gentle crackling of the fire settles into glowing embers. Camel bells, once heard throughout each day's journey, now rest quietly beside sleeping animals. A cool breeze carries the faint fragrance of distant flowers and fresh water across the camp, before disappearing once more into the darkness. Nearby trees whisper gently as their leaves respond to the quiet movement of the night air. Every familiar sound invites rest rather than attention, becoming part of the peaceful landscape that has accompanied us from the very beginning of the journey. Looking once more toward the ancient road stretching silently beyond the edge of the camp, it is comforting to remember that no traveller has ever truly walked it alone. Every path beneath our feet was shaped by countless footsteps that came before, and every journey added another quiet chapter to a story still unfolding across the centuries. The Silk Road was never merely a collection of routes joining distant cities. It was a living thread connecting landscapes, cultures, ideas, families, traditions, and hopes through the gentle persistence of everyday travel. It reminds us that history often moves not through dramatic moments alone, but through patient acts of kindness, careful craftsmanship, thoughtful conversation, and the simple willingness to continue walking toward one another. Now the lantern burns a little lower, its warm glow growing softer with each passing moment. The stars continue their silent journey across the heavens. The river flows steadily through the darkness, just as it did long before the first caravan passed its banks, and just as it will long after the last footsteps have faded into memory. Wrapped beneath the quiet sky, surrounded by the peaceful rhythms of the natural world, the journey gently comes to rest, not with an ending, but with the calm understanding that every road, every season, and every shared story becomes part of the endless, unhurried journey of human history. As the lantern grows softer and the stars continue their silent journey overhead, allow the ancient road to slowly fade into the quiet distance. There is nowhere left to travel tonight. The caravan is resting. The animals are peaceful. The fire has become gentle embers. And somewhere beyond the darkness, the Silk Road patiently continues its endless journey, carrying tomorrow's travellers just as kindly as it carried you. Sleep peacefully until another quiet road calls you once again.